The eyes do a double take next week when they're faced with double-letter words. Look and read with BBC Two at 10:50. Next Monday, Barnaby Bear has his first experience of continental Europe. That's here on BBC Two at 1 o'clock.
There's a Barnaby Bear activity pack and video to support and develop items covered in the programmes. For more information, call BBC Educational Publishing on 0870 830 8000. That's 0870 830 8000. Lines are open during office hours.
You can get full details of times and dates of all programmes for primary schools on the BBC Primary Table for Spring 2005. Telephone BBC Information on 08700 100 321 or write to BBC Information, PO Box 1922, Glasgow G2 3WT. The BBC Primary Catalogue gives full details of television, radio and support material from BBC Education for the new academic year. It's available free to schools by phoning BBC Education on 08700 100 321.
On Friday, Primary History looks back to a time when children from many families were forced to work in mines, factories and farms. That's Children in Victorian Britain on Friday at 10:30. And if you want to read more about Ben and the other characters in Shadow Play, don't forget there are pupil storybooks and a teacher's pack to accompany this Look and Read series. To order or to find out more about these resources, please contact BBC Children's Learning on 08701 288 289. Telephone lines are open Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And it'll be playtime again next Monday at 1:15 when Magic Grandad takes us back to experience the toys of the 1960s. Star and Hutch have some serious shoe counting to do in the next episode of Starship. That's at the same time next Tuesday here on BBC Two. Will the sly fox outwit the clever stork? Find out in Words and Pictures Plus on Thursday morning at 11 when Paul Ewing reads a new version of the classic fable.
Stand by for questions on percentages in next Tuesday's Maths Challenge at 11:05 here on BBC Two.
We've more Key Stage 2 science clips next Tuesday here on BBC Two at 1 o'clock.
And this time next week, easy ways to make your maths tests go smoothly. Revise Wise Shorts next Monday on BBC Two.
Exploring Islam next Thursday, Pathways of Belief here on BBC Two at 1 o'clock.
Teachers can get a resource pack that supports and extends this programme that includes a cassette with all the songs and music. For more information about this and other number time resources, call BBC Educational Publishing on 0870 830 8000. You can find out more about our range of programmes with our summer wall chart. For details, call 08700 100 321.
An original drama about two children whose lives are torn apart by war. Lion Mountain, next Monday at 11:10 here on BBC Two.
Grapefruits picked and packed in Dominica, just one of the featured items in Landmarks next Tuesday at 10:30 here on BBC Two.
Climate and life in the city and the country when Primary Geography returns to Bangladesh next Thursday here on BBC Two, same time, 11:20.
From hurricanes to sunny days, the climate changes in Trinidad next week. Landmarks on BBC Two is next Tuesday at the same time.
The BBC Primary Catalogue gives full details of television, radio and support material from BBC Education for the academic year. It's available free to schools by phoning BBC Education on 08700 100 321.
Transforming a bedroom into a rainforest. Don't miss Around Scotland next Tuesday at 10:30 here on BBC Two.
To help make the most of the pod's mission programmes, there's a Video Plus pack available. It contains a video of all the programmes and a teacher's activity pack with clear programme links. To order or to find out more about the resources, please contact BBC Children's Learning on 08701 288 289. Telephone lines are open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Annie wants to find out more about her beautiful plant, so Olo sends Pod to discover why plants need roots, stems and leaves. That's next Tuesday at 1, here on BBC Two.
You can find out more about our range of programmes with our autumn wall chart. For details, call 08700 100 321. Isambard Kingdom Brunel is the famous person we'll be meeting next Thursday. That's Watch at the same time, 10:30, here on BBC Two. Due to the conferences, the third part of this series can now be seen slightly later in the day, next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, here on BBC Two.
The conference next week means that there have been some changes to the school schedule, so the series continues on Monday the 26th of September at 11:10 with a look at daily life in urban Kenya. And you can find the updated schedules in your local listings. Due to the conference next week, the second part of this series can now be seen on Monday at 11:10 here on BBC Two. For an updated schedule, you can always check your local listings.
And the celebrations continue next Friday at 11:30 when Watch discovers more about Hinduism.
You can practice more of your spelling with the Spellits next Monday on BBC Two at 10:30.
And you can count on the Maths Channel next Monday afternoon at 1 o'clock when the topic will be subtractions.
Due to conferences here on BBC Two, the next trip with Magic Grandad to visit famous Jamaican nurse Mary Seacole can now be seen on Thursday the 13th of October here on BBC Two at 10:30.
Well, we've another great story told in sign language next week on BBC Two. The Chronicles of Narnia starts next Thursday at 11.
Primary Geography returns with a unit on the weather. That's from 10:30 next Friday morning.
For up-to-date BBC Education programme times, refer to your local listings or log on to bbc.co.uk/schools/guide.
Next week, a fun-filled shopping trip to buy food. The series continues Thursday at 10:45. Something special here on BBC Two. Because of the Labour Party conference, the Number Time gang will be adding up 3 numbers at the later time of 1:30 next Thursday, right here on BBC Two.
From Durham to Delhi, Wrexham to Rajasthan, why not bring the world into your classroom with BBC World Class? Put your school on the map and find out everything you need to know to get it twinned with a school overseas at bbc.co.uk/worldclass.
And there's more postcards from the series at the same time next Friday. The Coming to England series continues at the same time next week. And next Friday at 11:40 here on BBC Two, we have a new series, Black Britons.
Let's Write a Story begins next Monday, from the initial idea to getting it down on paper. All the help you need at 10:50 here on BBC Two.
Inspired by the ancient Greek storytellers, can Alex win a talent contest? Find out next Friday on BBC Two at 10:30. And Postcards from Bangladesh continues at the same time, 11:10 next Friday, here on BBC Two.
And a brand new series begins on Friday the 11th of November at 11:40, looking at difference and discrimination. Half term's coming up, so you can see part 2 of the series on Tuesday the 8th of November at 10:50, right here on BBC Two.
Of half term, the Happy Gang are back on Monday the 7th of November at 11, looking at the nature of money.
Author of the best-selling Horrible Histories, Terry Deary meets the 6 wives of Henry VIII, starting with Catherine of Aragon, Thursday morning at 11:30 on BBC Two.
Well, more ways to tackle bullying next time on BBC Two at the same week. There's more anger management here on BBC Two next week at the same time. We're on the move in Germany next Monday, looking at the country's huge road, rail and waterway network. That's at 10:40 here on BBC Two.
Another double bill of Words and Pictures Plus next Monday, same time, 11:15 here on BBC Two.
Next week's programme looks at the urban Indian landscape, concentrating on Mumbai. That's at 10 to 11 next Tuesday here on BBC Two.
And there's another double bill of primary history, The Romans in Britain, from 10 a.m. next Friday here on BBC Two. In the Name of the King continues at the same time, 10 past 11 next Friday here on BBC Two.
Well, the eco-friendly theme continues at the same time next week here on BBC Two.
And there's another double bill of Watch at the same time next week. You can find out more about our range of programmes with our spring wall chart. For details, call 08700 100 321.
Home is the theme of next Friday's programme, same time, 10 past 11 on BBC Two. Next week, the emotional side of puberty as it affects your relationships with your family, friends and how you feel about yourself. Focus on growing up next Friday, 11:30 on BBC Two.
Well, the mystery of a white horse carved into a hilltop could get you thinking next Friday, same time, 10 to 12 on BBC Two.
The impact of disasters and how they can be avoided. Your thinking skills are put to the test again, same time next Friday.
The series continues next Monday with a look at how the environment is changing in the Karkonosze forest in Poland. That's at the same time, 10:30 here on BBC Two.
Next week, Around Scotland appears to look at food matters. That's at the same time, 10:30 next Tuesday.
Grab your coat, hat and warmest gloves for an icy adventure music. Professor Allegro's your guide again next Tuesday at the same time, 10:50 here on BBC Two. 3 more science clips next week, starting with Light and Dark here on BBC Two from 1 o'clock.
And we're counting out the coins again with another double bill of number time next Thursday at 11 here on BBC Two.
And there's another double bill of primary geography next Monday here on BBC Two at the same time, 10:30.
Shadow Play continues in another triple bill of Look and Read next Monday from 11 here on BBC Two. We're learning more dance moves when Folk Dance returns with the second part here on BBC Two, same time next Tuesday.
Next week, Spats gets a pet of his own, but he needs to learn how to look after it. What, where, when, why, at 10:30 next Thursday. Hear the story of Dennis the donkey in the next Razzle Dazzle at 11 next Thursday, here on BBC Two.
The unit on Judaism continues with another double bill of Pathways of Belief from 11:30 next Thursday, here on BBC Two. Australia, Canada and the Pyrenees next Friday. More landscapes to explore in another double bill of primary geography at the same time, 10:50 here on BBC Two. Bullying is the topic for discussion next Friday. Enter the chat room again at the same time, 11:30 here on BBC Two.
And you can catch the next 3 episodes of The Legend of the Lost Keys next week. That starts at 11 next Monday on BBC Two.
And you can catch the next 3 science clips next Tuesday on BBC Two, starting at 1 o'clock.
We continue our focus on pets at the same time, 10:30 next Thursday here on BBC Two.
teeming Tudor life in busy and dirty streets next time. Don't miss Primary History on BBC Two, same time, 10:30 next Friday.
The Legend of the Lost Keys continues at the same time next Monday with another triple bill starting at 11 here on BBC Two.
There's more on Christianity with another double bill of Pathways of Belief next Thursday morning on BBC Two, and that's from the same time, 11:30. Primary History continues its look at Tudor life with a merchant story at the same time next week. And there'll be another double bill of Primary Geography at the same time next week.
Discover how inner cities get redeveloped in the next programme at 10:30 next Monday. Don't miss Watch as we continue our trip to the seaside next Thursday at 10:30 here on BBC Two.
Next week's postcard will be looking at world environmental change. So that's next Friday at 10:50 here on BBC Two.
We've more of The Way Things Work here on BBC Two in 2 weeks' time at the same time, 11:15. Find out more about our range of programmes with our summer wall chart. For details, call 08700 100 321. Printing is the next topic in the next Watch Art Start at 11:45 on Monday the 8th of May here on BBC Two. And there's more Megamaths, Shape and Space at the same time next week here on BBC Two.
More from France with Primary Geography, same time next week here on BBC Two. And there's more English Express next week at the same time, 11:30 here on BBC Two.
Next week, a look at the prosperous Britain of the 1950s and the influx of workers from abroad. Friday at 10:30 on BBC Two. Next week's programme explains why ancient Egyptians suffered a lot with toothache. Food, farming and the role of the River Nile. Same time Friday at 11:10 on BBC Two. Alcohol is next week's subject at the same time, 11:30.
Take another walk through time looking at fashion next Friday at the same time, 10:50 here on BBC Two.
We've more world environmental change here on BBC Two at the same time next week.
This unit on texts continues with another double bill of English Express from 10:30 next Monday. Next week, find out how honesty, teamwork and taking responsibility are essential to the band meeting the deadline for their new album. That's at 11:10 next Monday morning. Clarinets and phantoms and symphonies and stories with another double bill of instrument tales from 11:30 next Monday morning here on BBC Two.
Discover what's involved in making pop-up books here on BBC Two next Thursday at 11. The second programme in this series takes a look at friendship. That's at the same time next week.
Next Thursday, Pathways of Belief explains the Hindu concepts of God. That's at 11:30 here on BBC Two.
The Royals off on holiday next Tuesday, the last in the series of Megamaths Measure here on BBC Two at 10:30.
Caring and Growing next Friday. Watch continues at 11:30 here on BBC Two.
Moving house and the prospect of making new friends next Friday. That's at the same time, 11:45 here on BBC Two.
The BBC Primary Guide has full details of television, radio and support material from BBC Education for the new academic year. It's available free to schools by phoning BBC Education on 08700 100 321. How are leisure and sport affected by the weather? More from the Happy Gang at 1 o'clock next Monday. Discover more about our range of programmes on the Autumn Wall Chart. For more details, call 08700 100 321. Don't miss primary geography at the same time next week here on BBC Two when we visit the tropical island of Grenada.
Sorting fact from fiction next Monday on BBC Two. Don't miss the final part in our new series on the Jacobites, where we'll take you around Scotland again at the same time.
More mysterious happenings at the house in Shadow Play at the same time next week here on BBC Two.
Join Alex again here on BBC Two next week to find out about building, philosophy and medicine. That's at the same time, 10:30.
And See You, See Me continues its series on castles here on BBC Two at the same time next week.
From Bangladesh to Yorkshire to the USA, flooding has a big impact on people's lives. BBC Two finds out how they cope. Same time, 11 o'clock next Friday.
Another double bill from the Academy next Monday on BBC Two from 10:30.
And Shakespeare the Animated Tales continues with The Tempest here on BBC Two at the same time, 11:30 next week.
That rounds off today's programmes for schools. You can discover more about castles with See You, See Me, same time next week here on BBC Two. More shapes next week with Number Time here on BBC Two. Be here and be square. Same time, 10:30. More from Mr Muse and Mr Ponder next Monday here on BBC Two. Same time, 10:45. Next week, Zap gets zapped by Victor Virus. More Look and Read here on BBC Two, same time, 11 o'clock. Susie Perry's here next week on BBC Two, looking at the body as a human machine, making sense of health at the same time, 10:50 next Friday.
More of the Bible in animation next week on BBC Two. The story of Moses is brought to life at 11:20.
The focus is racism next week. 3 children from different minority groups talk about their experiences at 11:30 next Thursday here on BBC Two.
Visiting a Devonshire farm, we've a crash course in poetry writing next Monday morning with Big Slam at 10:30 here on BBC Two.
Thinking Skills tackles the topic of property next Tuesday, the 30th of January at 1:20 here on BBC Two.
And Words and Pictures returns with the next episode of Fun with Phonics tomorrow at 10:50 here on BBC Two. Razzle Dazzle discovers why the moon is made of cheese next time. That's next Friday at 10:30 on BBC Two. Dave watches the penguins performing some balancing tricks on an iceberg in the next episode. More Starship next Friday at 11 on BBC Two. The BBC Primary Guide gives full details of television and radio programmes, websites and support material for this term. It's available free to schools by phoning 08700 100 321.
You can find out more about our whole range of programmes with the Spring War Chart. For more information, call 08700 100 321.
And you can have more fun with phonics next week on Thursday and Friday at the same time, 10:50 here on BBC Two.
A Maths Challenge returns next Monday morning here on BBC Two.
And the Making Sense of Health series continues with Rick Mail in 20 minutes, examining teeth and eating.
We'll be meeting some fantastic animals in next week's programme, so more Music Makers next Thursday at 10:50 here on BBC Two. Next week we're going to be thinking about me and my family, so more Watch starting at 10:50 next Friday on BBC Two. Next week we'll be meeting some children who have arrived in Britain as refugees, so more Focus at 11:20 next Friday on BBC Two. For up-to-date times for BBC Education programmes, you can check your local listings, or alternatively, log on to bbc.co.uk/schools/guide.
Next week, the importance of testing materials to make sure they're right for the job, and a look at different types of stone. That's Pod's Mission next Tuesday from 1 on BBC Two.
More creative inspiration for your imagination in Big Slam Poetry next Thursday at 11:30.
Schools programmes continue at 1 o'clock with Barnaby Bear taking a trip to Edinburgh and some fun ways to develop language with something special.
The story of the Iron Man continues with sign language in just 5 minutes here on BBC Two.
It's Operation Rescue when Captain Crimson falls ill next Thursday. That's Look and Read at the same time, 10:30 here on BBC Two. Find out how the Romans relaxed tomorrow here on BBC Two. More primary history at 11:20 here on BBC Two. More country dances explained next Thursday here on BBC Two at the same time, 11:30.
In the next primary history, Alex finds out about ancient Greek architecture, philosophy and medicine. That's tomorrow morning at 10:30 here on BBC Two. This afternoon, BBC Education returns with a double bill of something special, the programme that helps to develop language in a fun and exciting way. That's from 1 o'clock here on BBC Two.
Seaside Entertainment next Friday. Another trip with Magic Grandad in Watch at 10:50 here on BBC Two. Staying in Germany, looking at home life and hobbies next Monday at the same time, 10:30 here on BBC Two. The story continues next Tuesday here on BBC Two. More English Express at the same time, 11:30. More science clips on Tuesday morning next week, starting at 10:30 here on BBC Two.
Danny's Challenge continues next week. More from the Master Storyteller next Thursday at 10:30. And Magic Grandad will be meeting more famous people from history in 3 weeks' time. That's on Thursday the 4th of October at 11:30. The story continues with the first key when Look and Read returns next Friday at 10:30 on BBC Two. Next week, a brother and sister who have faced racism tell their story and give some advice on what people should do if they're facing racism. That's next Friday at 10:50 on BBC Two.
Get your brain on the move with more thinking skills next Monday afternoon at 1:20.
More programmes from BBC Education tomorrow morning on BBC Two, starting at 10:30 with Faith Stories.
More schools programmes to come later today with A Midsummer Night's Dream, a Shakespeare animated tale at 1 o'clock here on BBC Two.
More schools programmes next week, starting from 10:30 on Monday morning here on BBC Two with Around Scotland.
And there'll be more schools programmes here on BBC Two on Thursday morning from 10:30 with Let's Write a Story.
Magic Grandad is back with more Watch next Thursday. That's the 11th of October at the same time, 11:30. There's more What, When, Where, Why next Friday, the 12th of October at the same time, 11:30.
Discover more about the ancient civilization next Monday when Primary History takes us on a journey through Pakistan and India at the same time, 10:50.
And we've more programmes for schools later on this afternoon here on BBC Two with a story of romance in disguise. As You Like It, Shakespeare the Animated Tales is at 1 o'clock. And there's more spelling with the Spellets next Thursday here on BBC Two, same time, 11:10. Who will we meet next week? Find out when Watch returns next Thursday here on BBC Two, same time, 11:30.
See You, See Me returns in 3 weeks' time here on BBC Two.
Schools programmes are taking a little break from BBC Two, so the next primary history will be in 3 weeks' time.
Next week's programme examines just how we led our daily lives as the war developed. That's at 10 to 11 next Monday here on BBC Two.
More tips on how to write a great story next Thursday at 11:30 here on BBC Two.
Discover more about Saxons and Vikings in primary history next Monday, and that's at the same time, 10 to 11 here on BBC Two.
Abs is back next week, finding out more about instructional writing. So more Let's Write Non-Fiction at 10:50 next Thursday on BBC Two. Next week, a look at how different homes were 450 years ago, at what they looked like and which materials they were made from. That's at 10:50 next Friday on BBC Two. Next week, we're going to focus on how writers draw us in by creating a real sense of character. So more English Express at 11:10 next Friday on BBC Two.
And next week, Terry meets the woman who changed the face of English history, the enigmatic Anne Boleyn. That's at the same time, 11:50 next Thursday, here on BBC Two.
And there's more from Watch in 3 weeks' time.
Jane will be back in Mexico next week, visiting possibly the largest city in the world, Mexico City. Primary Geography returns next Tuesday at 10:50. And we'll be back with more programmes for schools at 1 o'clock today. We'll be back in the chat room at the same time next week discussing self-esteem. That's next Thursday at 10:30. English Express will be back tomorrow with more language knowledge, finding out about the words slowly, sadly and wildly. That's at 11:10 on Friday. And Grant and Steph are going to be cycling in the country next week. They'll be back at 10:30 next Friday. We'll be finding out about children at play next week, at how rich and poor children entertain themselves in Victorian Britain. That's at 10:50 next Friday.
More adventures with Zap and the Word Master next Monday at 10:50 here on BBC Two. The Magic Key will be back next Monday at 11:45 here on BBC Two.
Imagine a time when there were no cornflakes, no sugar and no potatoes. What did people eat instead? A look at food next Tuesday at 10:50 on BBC Two. Next week, Andy will be visiting a Caribbean spice island to investigate tropical weather. That's next Tuesday at 1:10 on BBC Two. What's the difference between a triangular prism and a square-based pyramid? We'll join Mathsman for some 3D shapes next Thursday at 10:50 on BBC Two. The difficult problem of how you get a mammoth in a bath next week. Another double bill of the way things work, beginning at 10:45 next Friday on BBC Two.
And you can see the last episode of Birth, Care and Growth next Monday at the same time, 11:30.
Next week, a new series of Mega Maths all about fractions. That's at the same time, 10:50 Thursday, here on BBC Two. World Environmental Change next week. Primary Geography's back at the same time, 11:10 here on BBC Two. Toys from the 1950s here on BBC Two next Friday. More adventures with Magic Grandad, same time, 11:30.
BBC Schools programmes will be taking a break for the summer, but they'll be back in September.